Welcome to the final episode of Calamity Block, where after a full 80 hours of intricate Skyblock tech, it's time to overshadow all of that completely with one shiny pink fluid. And then what I can do is fill that with Shimmer, which unlocks so much. The first thing I do with Shimmer is throw in a full stack of bottles I bought from the merchant to get a whole lot of glass, which I then immediately throw back in. And there's our sand problem solved. Next I shimmer my Contaminator into a terraformer and buy some white solution from the steam bunker. I then continue my shimmer spree by converting a full stack of dynasty wood into normal wood and then converting that into dirt, before finishing up by turning some copper ore into stone, which I now have access to for the first time in the playthrough. I take all of this down to the cavern layer where I explode some dirt bombs and spray it with white solution to get snow. Once there's enough of this, it turns into an underground tundra where I farm many new enemies for essence of helium, which I then combine with some ice I made by spraying stone to make a cryo key. Cryogen's drops are thoroughly outclassed at this point in progression, but defeating him does spawn permafrost who I buy the cryophobia from, allowing me to craft the shredder, which has excellent crowd control. The much more major thing unlocked by Cryogen, however, is the fact that I can now get cryonic ore from either slimes or crates in the ice biome. In the next update, cryonic ore will be added to the shimmer chain between hallowed and titanium, but in the current version, Cryogen is the only way to unlock it in one block. Once I've collected enough of this, the first thing I do is craft an ornate shield and then upgrade it to the Asgard's Valor, one of the best accessories in the game and my first ram dash in this run. I've been waiting for this for so long. I can finally retire my counter scarf. While cryonic ore might not be part of the shimmer chain, scoria is, so I transmute some exodium clusters all the way down into it, then craft a fire gauntlet for extra melee damage, along with a miracle fruit for another 25 life. Tasty. The gauntlet ends up being quite useless, as after testing some weapons I decided to stick with ranged, so I make a deadshot brooch instead as my main class boosting accessory. Then, just to show that mage is also viable, I take down the Calclone a couple times and use its ashes to make a sigil of Calamitas. The availability of these items just goes to show how much is possible in this skyblock, especially now that I have Shimmer. In fact, if I really wanted to, I could speedrun through the rest of the game with mostly on-tier gear. But you're not here for that. You're here to see me exploit niche mechanics and showcase interesting skyblock tech. And lucky for you, I have one final trick up my sleeve. In order to create an artificial sunken sea, I'll need to place down 151 blocks of eutrophic sand, navy stone, or sea prism. All three of these drop from eutrophic or prism crates. However, obtaining any of them without already having a sunken sea is quite the puzzle, and I think going through that puzzle will provide a snapshot into the planning process behind a skyblock such as this. Eutrophic sand is only really crafted from or used to make other building blocks, none of which appear to be available, so we can rule that out. Navy stone is a little more interesting, being dropped by clams and the giant clam. However, I don't see any way of spawning these without already having the biome. It's used in a lot more recipes as well, with it being the main component in eutrophic furniture, along with some weapons and a fishing rod. If I could get my hands on any of these through other means, then I'd be able to shimmer them into navy stone, but alas, those other means don't seem to exist. That leaves us with sea prisms. These can be crafted from 5 prism shards which drop from enemies or grow on the side of blocks in the sunken sea, which once again results in a loop of needing the biome to get the biome. Our last hope is that there's some recipe using sea prisms that I can somehow obtain and then shimmer back into its ingredients. And by a massive stroke of luck that almost makes this seem like an intended loophole, there is one, but only just. Thanks to Calamity adding an alternate blood orb recipe for each potion, I'll be able to craft Tesla potions without needing all of the ingredients, or more importantly, without any sea prism. The problem then gets somewhat shifted from how I obtain sea prism to how I obtain pearl shards, as I can't get them the intended way from Desert Scourge since its spawn item requires a demon or crimson altar. Calamity does add recipes for the enchanted sword and Star Fury that use pearl shards, but in order to prevent tier skipping, these are not decraftable. Some members of my Discord server suggested disabling Calamity, crafting the Trimarang using the vanilla recipe, then re-enabling Calamity again to shimmer it for pearl shards. But disabling the core mod of the playthrough just to avoid a change it makes seems a little cheaty to me, and thankfully there's another, much more elegant solution. First, I place down some sand and more water at the ocean to get the to spawn, then easily shred through the Leviathan and Andahita. Next, I pour honey on some lava and collect the crispy honey blocks this makes, then shimmer these into hive blocks and use them to craft the Abomination. Guys, I don't know if we're going to be strong enough for this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I think we may die. Oh, we just got there. We're good. We just managed it. Defeating Queen Bee allows the Witch Doctor to move in, who I buy various items from, including 2 bewitchment tables. One for the extra minion slot, and the other to throw into Shimmer to get the alchemy table needed for Blood Orb potion recipes. I then start the long process of fishing for Flood Tides, a sword which has a 4% chance of being caught after defeating the Leviathan and Anahita while having between 60 and 160 fishing power and also being under the effect of the Gills potion. Why this is the case, I do not know, but the important part is that the Flood Tide also has a crafting recipe that uses 12 sea remains, 10 depth cells, and 2 shark fins, and unlike the Star Fury and Enchanted Sword, this recipe can be decrafted. If I then take the sea prisms I get from this and throw them back into the Shimmer, I get the items used to craft those too. And that's how you get pearl shards without ever having to defeat the Desert Scourge. From here, I combine these with blood orbs and water bottles at my alchemy table, then throw the resulting Tesla potions straight into the Shimmer. It's worth noting that these can only be decrafted after defeating the tier 2 evil boss to prevent getting aerialite earlier than you should. Due to the fact you only get 2/3 of potion ingredients back when decrafting, I do end up needing to gather more flood tides and blood orbs to get the full 151. Thankfully, it's easy to do both by fishing during a blood moon, so it doesn't take long to gather everything I need. Let's try 29 with the one that I've got in my inventory, decraft that. Let's chuck these in there as well, just in case. Did I not get any sea prism there? Did I genuinely not get a single sea prism from that? What? Stuck there. Oh, it's below. Okay, got 151, we're good. It's then just a matter of placing these down and drenching them in water to finally get a sunken sea, which to me is honestly more of an achievement than defeating Escal in this run. The threading of multiple needles required to make this possible is exactly what one block is about. But don't get me wrong, I'm still gunning for Escal, and there's a few things to collect from the sunken sea that should help me on my way. The white pearls dropped by clams here can be combined with even more sea prisms and sea remains to make the enchanted pearl. A very helpful fishing accessory to get now that I'm almost entirely done with the fishing grind. Clams also drop pink pearls, so I throw one into the Shimmer and consume the resulting galaxy pearl for some extra luck. Aside from pearls, clams also drop mollusk husks which I can use to make the Supreme Bait Tackle Box fishing station, Calamity's final upgrade to the tackle bag that comes with a built-in sonar effect. These mollusk husks are also used to make the Absorber, a pretty decent all-round accessory that pairs really well with the Charm of Myths. With prism shards now being much easier to obtain, I can also craft the Deific Amulet which acts as a juiced up star veil, although it admittedly doesn't see much use for the rest of the playthrough. Lastly, I take advantage of all those fishing accessories I just crafted to reel in some sunken sailfish, which I then craft into soaring potions for a boost to my flight stats. Before pushing forward however, I should double back and cover some other things I did during this time that didn't quite fit the sunken sea theme. Back when I defeated Queen Bee, I used some of her drops to craft the honeydew, then immediately upgrade this into the living dew. This seemingly underpowered accessory ends up being one of the best in the run, for the sole reason that it halves the duration of sickness or heat debuffs, which for some reason almost every major post-Moonlord boss inflicts. The other items I bought from the Witch Doctor get crafted into the Status Blessing, then after taking down the goblins again for the first Shadow Flame, upgraded to the Status Curse, showing that Summoner also gets a decent accessory at this stage. I decraft some Danger Sense potions I got from opening crates to get cobwebs, then turn a few of these into unsafe spider walls to form a rudimentary cobweb farm, and use the rest to craft the silk needed for the naughty present. The Frost Moon doesn't currently offer much other than the chain gun I need to craft the Onyx Chain Blaster. However, a little later on it'll be much more useful along with its brother the Pumpkin Moon. Speaking of pumpkins, did you know you can shimmer these into cactus? Aside from being an inversion of my most common comment, this is actually a pretty quick way of getting the cactus needed for swiftness potions without having to place down a bunch of sand. Up until now, all of these have come from rare slime drops or wooden crates, so finally being able to craft them is quite a relief. Back in the present, I continue my potion grind by placing down stone and spraying it with blue solution to make pearlstone. Over time, this will slowly grow the crystal shards needed to brew Purple Haze, the pretty much undisputed best alcohol buff in the mod. With my potion stores topped up, it's time to push on and defeat some bosses. However, instead of rambling on about how I died to Dragon Folly a few times before getting good and winning, or showing stream footage of me complaining about Death Mode Providence's bullet hell lasting way too long, I'd like to take this time to thank Inert, the creator of all this brilliant music you've been listening to throughout the video. Without their Calamity lo-fi remixes, one block simply wouldn't be the same. I honestly can't think of any other music that fits the vibe of this playthrough more, and I'd love if we could share some of the success of this project with them. You'll find a link to Inert's YouTube channel in the description. But I don't just want people to go subscribe and never watch their videos, as that can be quite detrimental with how the algorithm works. So instead of subscribing right away, I'd recommend saving some of their playlists and listening to them next time you're working or studying. Then if you want to hear more, you can subscribe to get notified every time they drop a new song. You'll be helping out a very talented artist that provides great music for free. There's literally no downside. Could have probably saved that adrenaline for the Guardians, but I guess this works too. One of them down. Okay, I think this might be it. If I'm lucky enough to not mess it up. Come on, last adrenaline, surely. I am at the bottom of my arena, I need to go higher up. Oh, okay. Look it up here. Oh, that is a relief. Okay, we're good. Providence is down. Lovely. Defeating Providence unlocks Eulibloom ore from slimes in the caverns, so I collect some of this, then use it to craft an elderberry for an extra 25 life. Along with Eulibloom, I also now have access to Bloodstone from various enemies in the Brimstone Crags, which I very appropriately farm with the help of a Blood Moon. Pretty much everything made from this also requires Necroplasm though, which is where this world's lack of a dungeon really starts to hurt. The only method to obtain this in one block is from the rather rare overloaded soldiers found in the underground layer, and considering it's a vital crafting component I'll be using all the way to the end of the game, I'm going to be spending a lot of time farming it. After around half an hour of farming, I only have 47 Necroplasm to show for it, so I'll need to return for more later. For now though, at least it's enough to craft the Dragon Blood Disgorger, a minion upgrade that comes with built-in lifesteal. I use this along with the Angelic Shotgun to take down Cygnus, who is still ridiculously easy even in death mode. Then, inadvertently building a very strong summoner loadout, I use his drops to craft the King of Constellations, Tenryu, before going straight into fighting Stormweaver. Oh, you're here, let's see. Okay, that was really easy to be honest. Much easier than I thought it was going to be. I spend the next 30 minutes in figurative and literal hell refighting Providence for the Elysian Aegis, with her making this as hard as godly possible. I then use the extra divine geodes she drops to make some Tarragon armour and wings, catch some bloodworms, and get started on dying to Old Duke. Seems to be quite tanky for now, but if I can just out-tank him, then I might be alright. I don't think I'm going to be able to attack him. It's pretty clear after these first few attempts that my damage is way too low, with it taking almost 5 minutes on my best attempt to get him to just under half health. Not wanting to have a 10-minute fight on my hands, I had to do something rather drastic. I had to use Summoner. I know I could save that for during his exhaustion phase, There's a good chance I don't make it to that, so... The difference in damage is immediately clear, with my first attempt getting him to around a quarter health in less than 2 minutes. Ah, that was not too bad. Even with the lower defense, Summoner is especially viable for Duke, as I can use the Eye of Magnus to half his massive 50% damage reduction while attacking. This results in essentially a 50% damage boost for minions and sentries, much better than even the Kaleidoscope can offer. That doesn't mean it's entirely useless though, as every 10 attacks the old Duke loses his damage reduction and rests for 5 seconds, which is the perfect time to get in some extra damage with the whip. There's a chance I make it through this. Oh no! Come on, come on, come on, die, die, die. He's so close. That wasn't so bad. Summoner is the way. That damage was so high that it just did not matter that I was not very good at the fight. While I still have my buffs active, I take him down a second time, then immediately abandon the Summoner class in favour of running ranged with the Fetid Emesis. When combined with the Infinite Pierce of Luminite bullets, this should tear through the Devourer of Gods. First though I have to spawn him, so I recycle some weapons in the Shimmer to get back the Necroplasm I used to craft them, then use this along with Luminite and Galactica singularities to craft the Cosmic Worm. Since I don't have a dungeon, I can't fight the Ceaseless Void for the primary recipe, so I'm really glad this secondary one exists. Okay, let's give it a go. Okay, phase 2. Oh, didn't even see him there. When he said don't get cocky, he was speaking specifically to me. Nice. Oh, don't choke. There we go. And now we can make some proper upgrades. Looking forward to this next tier. And see what we get. 64 Cosmolite bars. I feel like that's on the higher end of what he can drop. As Guardian Aegis is going to be huge. The main thing is going to be the sponge though. That's the thing I'm looking forward to most. The first thing I craft is the Cosmic Anvil, which I then use to make the Essence Flare, potentially the best weapon for the buffed moon events. What makes this so good is that it grants 8 health upon killing an enemy, and due to the nature of these events there's a whole lot of enemies for it to kill. Like in most playthroughs however, the events themselves aren't all that interesting, so let's just skip to the items they unlock. 10 defense, 12% damage, 2 max minions, extra 2 life regen during the day, and 20 defense at night. Pretty good accessory all things considered. And then how much Ascendant Spirit Essence can I make? Oh, I can make 4. Interesting. What do I want to use that for? Probably the sponge. Let's go with the sponge. Lovely. Sadly that's all I can craft with the Necroplasm I currently have, so I have to spend another 20 minutes farming it before I can craft the Asgardian Aegis and Elemental Gauntlet. I then use these upgrades to fight the Devourer again for more Cosmolite before returning to even more Necroplasm farming for the next 45 minutes. For a second you could almost confuse this for the start of the playthrough. It seems something about grinding through hundreds of mobs to get a rare enemy or drop is just innate to Skyblock, no matter how far you get in progression. Regardless, now that I have more Necroplasm I can craft both Godslayer and Fearmonger armour. Though I decide to go with Fearmonger for Yaren as it allows me to get the most out of my summons while still using a weapon from another class. In this case the SDFMG. is an annoying one. Oh, don't know how I didn't take damage there, that was fully luck. The Yaren attempts end up going significantly better than I thought they would, with my first getting him to around 10% health. Oh, so close there. The second getting him to a mere 1%, and then finally I end up winning on the third. Nice early adrenaline is good. I think I got it. There we go. Not too bad. Could have been a whole lot worse. The defeat of Yaren brings me incredibly close to the end of this challenge. All that's really left to do is open a few hundred titanium crates I've been saving to get auric ore, which I then use to craft some new weapons, namely the Ataraxia and Nadir. Unfortunately, since I can't fight Poltergast, auric armour is off limits, but Fearmonger is a pretty viable alternative to be honest. It's a similar story for the two main auric tier accessories, so this is pretty much the best gear I can get. The last thing to do then is combine auric bars, cores of Calamity, and brimstone slag to craft the pinnacle of all my one block engineering, the Altar of the Accursed. Let's go for it. With that, it's time to get into the final boss of one block. Oh yeah, I'm forgetting how this fight actually works. The video isn't quite over yet as there's still some loose ends to tie up, but while I fight Escal in the background, I'd like to thank you all for the support throughout this series, especially those of you who joined my Patreon shown on screen just now. I really couldn't be happier with how everything's turned out, and I'm very excited to see what's in store for the channel in this next chapter. As for the end of this chapter though, Supreme Calamitas really wasn't too difficult, with me beating her in just 8 attempts. Although this challenge was never about the boss fights, as cliché as it may sound, it really was more about the journey, about proving just how much is possible from such a restrictive start. As such, I couldn't think of a better way to end it than filling in as much of the boss checklist as possible, regardless of how far back those missing entries may be. First up is Deerclops. Now while I can't craft her spawn item due to not having a demon altar, there is another way. During a blizzard in the snow biome at exactly midnight, Deerclops will grace me with her presence and another few percentage points of pre-hard mode boss checklist completion. Okay, we're good. Deerclops is dead. We did it, guys. We can rest now. The playthrough is over. It's not quite over yet though, as I can also fight the Great Sandshark mini-boss which spawns after defeating 10 regular sandsharks during a sandstorm. Was that it? Was that it? Okay. There's the maximum completion in a one block. As far as I can tell, that's every single boss you can currently beat in Calamity from a single block. 33 out of 44 really isn't bad. That's a full 3/4 of the bosses in the game. I did spend some time trying to beat the Primordial Worm super boss, but since I don't have access to Shadow Spec gear, my DPS was way too low, and I could only deal around 1/4 of its health before running out of breath. So that's it. Once again, thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you'll join me in whatever challenge I force upon myself next.